let's talk briefly about how to edit for careless errors when you're writing. This will be for all of your writing, not just when you've got an academic tone. First of all, let's talk about what is the error. There are a lot of things that could fall under this, but these are the most common ones. Spelling. And I'm not talking about a really, really hard word that maybe you've tried, figuring out and tried throwing it in Google a couple of different ways and still can't figure out how to spell it. If you misspell something like that, there's probably going to be a little bit more grace, although I will suggest that you don't use that word, maybe use a synonym or potentially get somebody else to help you with that. These are the simple ones, like that are clearly would be underlined with a red mark in spell check, that it's a word that everybody that you would know how to spell and that your spell check pull up. Basic grammar things. And this again is not anything that the SAT or the ACT would be testing necessarily. Those are the more high order ones that you learn over time. These are the silly, silly ones that Grammarly would easily pull up, and that if you read it and look at it, you'd say, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did that. Like here, he die. No, he dies. So that's a very, very quick, easy, and obvious, something that even a very, very early English speaker would understand doesn't sound right. Punctuation. This is a really easy one to screw up. If you hit the period twice, or you miss a period at the end of your paragraph or at the end of your paper, maybe you've opened a quotation mark and then you've forgotten to close it, so it's really impossible for your audience to know where that quoted material ends. Just things like that. So here you can see that that there's two periods at the end. Maybe I've deleted a sentence here. These are just silly things that copy editing, just looking at it again, will find these errors and you'll be able to fix them. Authors, titles, and characters. Here we're asking you to be accountable for things that are sitting right in front of you. You should be spelling and representing correctly all titles, authors' names, and characters' names correctly. If the author is calling the character by the last name every time, then that's how you should refer to them also. And you certainly don't want to get the title wrong. Here, the correct title is The Fall of the House of Usher. That's incorrect, and you can just look at the piece that you're reading in order to do this. Your quotes also must be exactly as they are in the text. If you misquote, that is a careless error. So you should be checking your quotes against exactly how it looks in the text. You wouldn't want to misspell something in a Mark Twain quote, because then it looks like Mark Twain did that, and that's certainly not the case. So attention to detail. And then here also spaces and formatting, where you might accidentally hit the enter key somewhere, or you've copied and pasted a quotation that then changes the font from that point forward. Again, these are things that just are attention to basic detail that we want you to go back and look for, so that you're not just finishing something and then kind of tossing it to the side. Again, anything obvious, something that you clearly, with no question, know better than to do it. And if you reread it, you would find it again. So why does this matter? It matters because careless errors mean that the writer doesn't care, or at least that's the assumption made by readers. Maybe you do care deeply, but you just didn't want to go back and look, or you missed something. This is something that Mr. Sprouse says. He may have gotten it from somewhere else, but I'm going to attribute Mr. Sprouse, which is where I got it. And you've done this also. You found it something that a teacher published on Canvas, or handed you a handout, or in a book that you're reading where there is an error, and you're like, oh my gosh, how silly, they missed this silly, silly thing. And it does decrease the credibility of that person. My daughter just found one the other day, and it's very clear that it was just missed in the editing process, but that means that somebody missed it, and we say, well, how could that have happened? Did they really care enough? So general guidelines, the things that you should be worried about here. Realize that, again, it is not all grammar. It is only those careless errors that you know, that are easy things that you would metaphorically kick yourself if you saw them and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Those are the things we're talking about. So how do you find and edit for these things? There are a couple of ways to do this, some while you're writing and some after you're done writing. As you write, you should have your spell checker and grammar checker on. If you don't have it on while you're writing, certainly make sure that you run it through Grammarly at the end if it's not underlining in red and blue as you go. If you can make it so that it's underlining in red and blue as you go, that will help you out most because you will automatically see it right away. It'll be right there in your face to just right click and fix that right in front of you. Next, you'll want to proofread and edit for errors. Sometimes they're really hard to see because you'll be reading through focusing on your ideas and not focusing on those little details. My suggestion there is first to spend the time to reread, but then also increase your font size. Bring it up to 36 or 48 point font, and then try reading from the bottom up. You'll see a lot of these things a lot more quickly and easily that way. Misspellings or weird punctuation, if you read each sentence in isolation and not in the context of your overall argument. And then lastly, use copy editors. Ask people around you, friends, family, whoever, to check for obvious errors. Tell them that that's exactly what they're checking for. Instead of asking them just to read in general, tell them exactly what you want them looking for, and then you'll find a lot of these.